8 steps, one system. And if you follow this in order, you're going to have more control over your money than 90% of the military families that are around you. This is what I call MOP, the military order of operations, and it changes how you control your money. Now, you can make fun of me if you want to, but I look forward to the day celebrating you whenever you're at the mountaintops because you have given yourself financial options, and I can't wait for it. Now, I've helped hundreds of families with their finances and their transitions, right? Because that's just as important. We're always transitioning. And I can tell you the number one thing that holds them back, and it's not their income. It's the order that they do things in. So these 8 steps that we're going to go over, they're based on a life first approach. And then we go through the wealth optimization, and then we look at real estate if and when it applies. So let's break it down. Now, I used to be a comptroller. I was responsible for making sure that people's pay got handled correctly, military, civilian, look, everyone on base. And then we had the base level budgets too. I'm a certified personal financial coach. But what I'm sharing today, this is educational content, and I don't sell financial products. It's just information to help you take control. Now, if you're thinking, I've tried budgeting before, Weldon, and it just never sticks. It's not because you can't do it. I know that personally. It's because you were probably doing things again in the wrong order. So we're going to talk about that. And if you're active duty, this matters even more because your pay, it's base pay plus entitlements, plus deductions, plus benefits, plus changing taxes. And if you don't understand the whole picture, you can't build a real plan. And by the way, if you haven't watched my other video on the 8 things that nobody teaches you about military pay, start there first. It's in the caption below, and that gives you a great foundation of understanding this approach. So now here's the framework, and it's 8 steps. You do them in order, and you stop trying to do everything at one time. We break it down to where it's manageable. You can take it to any duty station, any grade, any family size, and most importantly, you're going to know exactly where to start and what order to do things in because that order, it matters more than the amount that's in your bank account today. All right, this is step 1, and this is make your pay make sense first. And how do we do that? We're actually going to pull up the LES, the leave into earnings statements. Be honest with yourself. How often do you ever actually look at it? Because it changes more often than you ever realize. So what we're going to do here is make sure that what we're getting into our bank account is actually accurate. And then we'll use that as the foundation for our budgeting. So do me a favor and pull up your LES, not the deposit amount from your bank account, okay? What I'm talking about is the actual LES itself. And you need to know your base pay. You need to know your entitlements. And of course, that's your BAH and your BAS. You need to know what's being deducted. So SGLI, taxes, TSP, anything that happens to be allotted. And here's the key. Know which parts are taxable and which parts aren't because that changes how you plan. Now, if anything looks wrong, and I mean anything, don't guess. Don't assume that it's going to fix itself because it's not. Go to your local finance or comptroller office and get it corrected. I realize that it can be overwhelming, and so if I can help you do that, call me, set time on my calendar. I'm happy to walk through your LES because at the end of the day, that sets your foundation and can certainly tell you how to read it. Now, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel because I got a whole library of military pay content. It's coming your way. We talk about life, we talk about wealth, and we talk about real estate, things that are pertinent to us all. And we do it through a military lens. So there you go. Okay, now this is step number 2. And this is build your zero-based budget. You might say, Weldon, what does a zero-based budget mean? Well, this is where you're going to give every single dollar a job before the month starts. Not after, but before you get your pay. So think of your squadron, your unit that you're in. Every one of you has a job. And if you don't execute your job, well, that's going to have an impact on you or people around you. So in this case, your money, every dollar, that must have a job. And so we're going to assign it a duty. That includes eating out. That includes fun money. That includes giving. That includes your kid's birthday. Look, everything. Now, Your budget, it needs to reflect your real life, not the fantasy version of you. There are some foundational elements that you need to make sure to take care of. So that way you have options in the future. Because if your budget doesn't include joy, it's not going to last. And at the same time, if your budget doesn't include structure, it's not going to win. You're not going to win. So let's start with your income, getting that right in step one. Then we're going to list your fixed expenses. Then we're going to go into your necessities. Every dollar has a job, zero based. Use a spreadsheet, it'll help you. And if you've never done this before, don't try and build the perfect budget. Just build the first one. You're going to adjust it multiple times until you get used to what it looks like to live on a budget and getting those numbers actually accurate to your lifestyle. The point is to stop reacting and start directing your dollars. Now, once you've got the budget built, you're going to want to optimize it. Okay, so this is where we start with plugging the leaks. And I call them quiet leaks because most of it doesn't feel like spending because you're going to have subscriptions that you forgot about, eating out creep, impulse spending at the PX or the BX, payment plans that feel small until you've got 6 of them stacked on top of each other. And then all of a sudden you're like, holy smokes, why am I losing several $100s every single month? Well, there it is. But here's a test that you can use. And this is pull your last 30 days of transactions. Every card, every app, everything. Highlight anything that surprised you. And if you're being honest, I guarantee you there's at least several $100s there that you didn't need to happen. Your budget can't work efficiently if your money is leaking everywhere. Build the budget, then tighten it. All right, now we're going to move into step 3. And this is after you know what you're supposed to be getting. You've started allocating those dollars accordingly. And now we need to make sure that we have a starter fund. Before you try to be perfect, before you start throwing money at debt or investments, build a small cushion. The goal here, it's $2,000 set aside, and that way a surprise doesn't become a credit card cycle. This isn't your emergency fund. I want you to remember that, okay? It's the start of it, but it is not the end goal. This is just enough so that whenever the car needs a new tire or the kids need something for school that you just didn't have budgeted, whatever the case may be, you have to make that determination of is this a true need, not a want? So there's some judgment that has to be used. But the goal is if you have money, you have options. You create stability, and that's what we're trying to get to first. Then we're going to build. Now, if you're still with me, here's where it starts to really separate itself from every other budgeting system that you've tried and where we start tailoring it more towards the military lifestyle. So steps 4 through 8, they're where you go from surviving to building. And the order, it matters here more than you think. Step 4, this is attack your debt. Attacking debt, that's not a concept that any of us have never heard before. But sometimes I hear, hey, wait a minute, well, then shouldn't I be investing first? What about the TSP match? That is free money. Yes, it is. I get it. And I would be very tempted to do that as well. But the free money, that can cost you something that most people don't really talk about. And that's your decision space. You think about your leaders, they're looking at all the options. So that way they know what the decision parameters that they have. Well, you're doing the same exact thing. You're creating decision space by reducing debts first and then focusing on the investing. So debt, that's going to shrink your options. It adds mental stress. It keeps you in a constant catch-up mode. And in the military, that excessive debt, that can actually trigger a security clearance review. That's not just a financial problem. That is a career problem. So we're trying to get a hold of it now so that way we don't have to go through those consequences. Now, there are 2 popular ways to get after it. So the avalanche method, that says pay off the highest interest rates first. And mathematically, that saves you the most money over the time, okay? Now, and then there's the snowball method, and that's pay off the smallest balance first and roll that payment into the next one. Now, I lean snowball because that creates a lot of motivation because when you're grinding through debt, knocking out that first balance fast, that gives you some momentum, that gives you some excitement, and it proves the system works. And that momentum, that is what's going to keep you going when it gets hard. Either method works. Pick one. The wrong answer, the only wrong answer, is to do nothing. That's why I want you to attack it. Not because the math always says it's optimal, but because what I care about most is your well being and your ability to make choices. And once you've handled the debt, you're not just better off financially. You're free to do what's best for you, for your family, the mental clarity that you get from it. It's freedom. Okay, step 5. This is PCS proof your budget with a PCS reserve fund. That's a mouthful. All right, so we know PCSs are going to happen. They cost a lot of money. Even if you get reimbursed, it's never enough. So, what we're going to do is we're going to create a PCS fund. Stick with me. In personal finance, they call this a sinking fund. So, money that you set aside a little at a time for specific expenses that you know are coming. You're not saving for a surprise, you're actually saving for certainty. And in the military, a PCS is a certainty. But here's the bigger point, this isn't just a PCS thing. In the military, you know the move is coming. And then when you get out, you still know there are annual bills, seasonal hits coming, insurance deductibles, car registration, the holidays. Heck, for our family, we actually start saving on January 1st for Christmas. So that way we're ready for the next year because we know it's coming. Same concept, fund the certainties on purpose. Now, here's how I actually do this in my own family, my own personal life. I don't have just one savings account with a big lump sum sitting in it. I actually create multiple accounts and I give every single one a name and a job. Have you heard this before? Maybe back up at the budgeting session, right? So money comes into one main account and then I distribute it out. So we had a PCS fund before we retired, and then we have a vacation fund. We have an emergency fund. We have the kids' activities fund. We had the investment fund. Look, we had accounts with specific purposes. And then when we were saving for a car, we had the car fund, right? So we would put money in there every month. That way, when it came time to buy one, we were ready. And each one, again, had a specific purpose. And most banks, they will let you rename the account right in the app, right in the desktop app, whatever you're using. And the reason this works is the same reason zero-based budgeting works. When money has a name, you're less likely to touch it. When it's all sitting in one account, it's too easy to borrow from yourself and never pay it back. Separate the accounts, name the goals, automate the transfers, and that's how you make this stick. Now, make sure your bank account or your institution, they don't require minimum balances. You don't want to cost yourself money. So if you need some recommendations, let me know and book time. We'll talk through it. All right. So for your PCS fund specifically, separate account, automatic transfers every single month, just an even $50. And by the time a couple years rolls around, 3 years rolls around, well, you're nearly to $2,000, and that's going to help you out. Now, don't forget, you probably are going to get dislocation allowance as well. So that helps, but now you're covering that delta between reality versus what you're entitled to. And this is all because we know that PCS costs, they're real, they're front loaded, you're paying for gas, temporary lodging, security deposits, meals on the road, all before your reimbursement catches up. And I don't want you to destroy your emergency fund every single time whenever you PCS, and then you start over at zero at the next duty station. And by the way, if you want the full breakdown of your pay, BAH, all your entitlements, how they actually work, what to look for on the LES, I made a whole different video on the 8 things that nobody teaches you about military pay. It's in the description below, and you click on it, understand it, it's going to help you move forward. Okay, this is step number 6, build your full emergency fund. So we have our starter fund. We also have a separate account for this PCS that we know is coming. But 3 to 6 months of expenses, that is a common guideline, and it's a good one. Tailor it to your family and your risk levels, though. So a single service member with no dependents, 3 months might be just fine. Sole income earner with 3 kids, 6 months minimum. And I'm not saying your full lifestyle fund. I'm talking about your actual costs to live, your debts, be able to pay those monthly. And here's a tip. Put this in a high yield savings account. Your emergency fund, that should be working for you while it sits there, not earning next to nothing in just a regular checking account. We'll get more into that in a future content video, but for now, just know that where you park this money, it matters. It's going to be, at least currently, a higher interest rate sitting there than just in a normal checking account. Check the rates. They're probably abysmal, but the goal is simple. A surprise, we don't want it to become a crisis. A layoff, a surprise PCS, something happening in your family. That transition does not have to become a panic moment. This is the foundation that lets you take smart risks with confidence instead of making desperate moves out of fear. Now, we've all had different experiences. I'm always looking to learn from others, talk about concepts that other people have experienced. And so I'm going to just encourage you, drop a comment. Tell me which of these 8 steps is the hardest one for you and your family right now. I read every single one of them, and I'm happy to do further content to help you learn that concept and then apply it in your life. All right, step 7, this is invest and build for the transition. So once your debt, once it's handled and your foundation, that's strong, this is where it gets exciting. You ramp up your TSP contributions with intention. As a baseline, aim for about 15% of your household income going into retirement investing once you're past that emergency fund and debt steps. So if you're under the blended retirement system, make sure you're getting that 5% match at minimum. And if you're in a combat zone, max out the Roth TSP while your income is tax-free. Then align the plan with your next 12 to 36 months. Are you PCSing, deploying, separating, retiring, thinking about buying a home? Every one of those timelines changes how you should be allocating your money right now. Step 8, this is start your house fund. Okay, so we all need a place to live. Homeownership, if it's even remotely on your radar in the next 1 to 3 years, you need a house fund. Not just the down payment, a house fund. Because buying the home, that's one part. Keeping it financially stable, that is the real test. Maintenance, repairs, appliances, the unexpected stuff that happens whenever you're the owner instead of the renter, that needs its own bucket. Because the last thing that you want to do is buy a house, then have the hot water heater go out and end up back in consumer debt. You don't want it. And here's where the military families, where you actually have an advantage, and it's the VA loan. But before you go down this road, a few things should be in place. Your emergency fund needs to be fully built. You need to be prepared to hold on to that property for at least 5 years. Now, you don't have to live in it for full 5 years. You could rent it out when you PCS if you got to order shorter than that, but you need to be ready to hold on to it for that long for the math to work. And you need a stable income. So if you're active duty, that's a steady paycheck. And that's one of the reasons that this can make a lot of sense for military families. So don't skip this step. The VA loan opens the door, but your house fund is what keeps you from getting caught off guard once you're inside. Here's the truth. One day, you're going to take off the uniform, and the decisions you're making right now, the order that you're doing things in, that's going to determine whether that day feels like freedom or panic. MOP, this gives you the sequence. You just have to follow it. All right, now if you've made it this far, here's what I want you to do. First, build your zero-based budget for the next 30 days. Just 1 month. Don't overthink it. Just get something on paper. And second, if anything on your LES doesn't make sense, go to your local finance or comptroller office and get it clarified. Don't guess, don't assume. Look, get it cleaned up. And third, if any of this doesn't make sense, again, click on the link in the caption below. Whenever we sit down, you're not going to get a financial product from me. I'm not going to sell a service. It's what happens every day in the military environment. We call them drive-bys, where somebody would stop by my office and say, "Hey, Weldon, you have a minute?" "Yeah, absolutely. Come on in." And we would talk. We would talk about life. We would talk about wealth. We would talk about real estate. We would take these ideas and learn from one another. And that's exactly what I do now. And then once you have the concepts or like the strategy that makes sense in your mind for you and your situation, then I connect you with values aligned individuals all across the country. And that's what being a transition strategist is all about, helping you plan with purpose. And in the next video, once you've got these 8 steps squared away, we're going to talk about the next level of budgeting. Using your post 9/11 GI Bill to save for your kids' college, paying off that home as soon as you can, and then creating more opportunity for you and your family. I'm Weldon Hobbs. I'm a veteran. I'm a transition strategist, and I've helped hundreds of military families make their PCS just a little bit smoother. Good decisions, they start with good information, and I'll see you in the next one.